Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the AI and TechConnect podcast, where we explore how technology, leadership, and bold ideas are shaping the future of real estate and beyond. I'm your host, Laurent, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by someone at the center of real estate innovation, James Shearing, Managing Director of RETCON, one of the most influential conferences at the intersection of real estate and tech. James, great to have you here. Happy to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. Good to see you.
Very cool. That's going to be a great podcast, and I have no doubt about this. Let's start with your story. I always love to hear what shaped the person behind the role, and how did your journey into the real estate innovation space begin?
Yeah. So my career, honestly, I've had a slightly non-traditional career. I've never been a person that said I want to go in this direction. It's always, I've been the type of person who wants to follow passion, which for me is bringing people together in a very unique, innovative way. And I've always looked for interesting ways to do that. I never thought that I would be in real estate. I never thought that I would be running a real estate innovation conference. It's quite a specific career that takes a lot of explaining at dinner parties. It's a career I love. I really just kind of fell into real estate adjacent roles after school. I started by running co-working spaces, which was a lot of fun, really kind of pre-WeWork. So people would just ask, what's a co-working? That was a really cool just start to my career. After that, I joined BizNow, which is another real estate media and events company, and love that. It's very national and global. They have some UK markets as well. I did that here on the East Coast in DC, and then went out to LA and ran content for their West Coast markets. So I had a pretty broad stroke national perspective on the real estate market through BizNow. And then during COVID, we actually launched RETCON out of just unique kind of perception of opportunity in the market. We launched RETCON, and we've just kind of been doing that ever since, which has been a lot of fun. So
I love it.
yeah,
Very cool.
yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Anyway, you're so young. there's there's
Well,
many things we can do.
the FaceTime filter does me some favors.
um, were there any key turning points that led you toward building something like Redcon, or it was just out of
Yeah. So very interesting turning points. COVID was a huge shift for a lot of us. I actually lost my job in the middle of COVID at BizNow, and no hard feelings. It was COVID. We all had to make some tough decisions. And as a business owner myself now, no hard feelings there. But so I actually was pretty jobless in COVID, and got teamed up with my current business partners, and we launched RETCON. I was fortunate enough to be able to be the kind of outside leading force. We have a great kind of infrastructure of conference under us, and I got to be the kind of external person, which has been a really, really great role that I've been fortunate to have. And yeah, we essentially saw that the industry needed a place to gather. A lot was happening in the industry, especially within tech and innovation. Folks had to start adopting tech much quicker than they ever expected to. Many times they were in a silo on their own, kind of individual and unique teams, and we saw a need to connect. There were a lot of other conference companies that were, or conference entities that were trying to go digital, and um, I completely sympathize with all of those experiences. It's not easy to take a conference and go digital, especially if you think of something super large like an ICSC, which just takes over Vegas. How do you make that digital? I don't know. It's really hard. But we were in a pretty unique situation where we were new. No one had any kind of expectation of what RETCon was, what the conference should and could be. So we really kind of soft launched digitally. We started gathering people. Honestly, it wasn't much different from a series of podcasts where people could interact digitally. We incorporated networking opportunities and functions, and by no means was it perfect. I don't think any digital event was perfect, but because people had no expectation of us, it enabled us to launch and build a brand very quickly, which was great. And then once we were able to start going in person, we started having in-person conferences. So it was kind of one of those stories where something extremely unfortunate happening in the world led to some innovations, which was ended up being very exciting for us.
That's wonderful. It's what's been the your biggest lesson you have learned along the way up to now?
Biggest lesson. Um, I think what has been very interesting for us is that we have grown pretty quickly and the conference has changed year over year. So, in many ways, the conference has never been the same year over year just by nature of its growth. And I think what I've learned is just to be adaptable. You can't expect to create one thing one year and then it to be the exact same next year. The industry is changing at such a rapid pace. Folks have very high expectations of what tech content should be. When we started the conference in 2020, a lot of folks really were just kind of forecasting. This is what I think is going to be next. This is what we're trying out on our property teams. We're still not sure about it. And then, and there were always some industry veterans who had a great plan and they've been doing this for years. But a lot of folks were just really kind of forecasting and trying things out. And now, I'd say close to a majority, if not large minority of property companies have a very robust tech platform and understanding. So every year we're having to continue to, kind of change the way we perceive content, change the way that we're bringing people together. We're advancing the ways that people are connecting because they're needing to have more deep conversations, which is great because we're finally at a time where we can have very deep conversations. So it's great.
Uh, that's great. Is it a mix of conference and booth
Yes, yes. So we have conference and we have an exhibit hall area as
exhibit
well.
hall?
Both are extremely important to us. We think that there's a ton of value in each. I think that a lot of owner operators come to hear content. So do vendors. But I think a big reason that a lot of owners and operators come to the conference is for content. And for us, those business to business interactions between owner operators and vendors are extremely important. In many ways, our sponsors, who are usually vendors, they do underwrite our event. We've been largely bootstrapped, so we're completely reliant on sponsorship, a bit of ticket sales. So ensuring both owners and operators are happy and our sponsors are happy is extremely vital to us. And we really kind of weigh both equally, and we find that folks come for each. Folks really do come for our content. They take away content, but I think what's kind of interesting is sometimes as a conference organizer, you do want to make sure that owner operators get their peer-to-peer time, and sometimes potentially there's a caution to meet with too many vendors. Owner operators sometimes want that peer-to-peer time as opposed to having too many vendor conversations, but we also get, feedback in our surveys that say, I didn't get enough time with vendors. So there's, I think a lot of people come to conferences for different reasons, and serving all of those different parties is a unique challenge, but it's a lot of fun.
That's great. Uh, how do you define Redcon's mission today?
Yeah. So I would say our mission is to, one, educate the industry broadly, to connect people, whether it's on a peer-to-peer level or a business-to-business level, and then ideally push the industry forward. It's, our goal. If we have a successful conference, then two people, maybe who were maybe a East Coast PMC, a West Coast property management company, they haven't, had many interactions. They may or may not be competitors, and they have conversations and they link together and have a unique conversation that leads to innovations within both their organizations, but then potentially, they continue to have these conversations, and there are movements that are spread throughout the industry. So that's really our goal.
Yeah, and I presume there is a handful of other real estate conference, but what do you think differentiated truly valuable real estate conference from the rest?
Yeah. So I think what's been, if I have a secret sauce, it's that we very much invest in all of our attendees, all of our sponsors, all of our stakeholders, all of our speakers. In many ways, we actually, I would even call us a bit of a startup, and we have had to succeed to exist. One, we've had that necessity, really to thrive, to survive. And to me, doing that has been the investment in our stakeholders, meaning all the groups of people who attend the conference. Like I said, we're largely underwritten by sponsorship. So if our sponsors don't get business, they don't sponsor RETCon and we don't exist. So making sure our sponsors get business and then making sure owners and operators get something valuable from the conference, taking the time to really invest in relationships. To me, it's something that has always just kept me going. It kind of ignites me and fuels me, which I guess is a good thing because I really do think that is essential to the success of any brand, but especially any brand that an institution that brings people together. You need to nurture those very great core relationships in order to succeed. And we've grown very quickly, but as much as we grow, that to me is a cornerstone of our business that absolutely must happen. People must feel special when they come to RETCon. They must have a not just connection with our brand, but a personal connection with us and our team. That's extremely important to us, and I'd like to think is a key to our success. There are potentially many other factors, but that's what I would very much like to point to.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And how how do you choose speakers who truly bring impact?
Yeah. That's something that I've learned a lot about over the years. I think that it's extremely important to have um, folks in the industry that people look up to. So real leaders in the industry that folks look up to, and they see, oh, this CEO at this company is speaking. They've always been a mentor or leader of mine, whether or not I've known them personally or just known of them in passing and always looked up to them. To me, that's extremely important to have those people. But we also find that there are folks that, maybe don't have huge name recognition in the industry who have extremely innovative insights. And we have panels at RETCon, but we also have a lot of talks as well. And I think that folks really oftentimes learn the most from those. And what is unique about the industry and tech as a whole is it is becoming a lot more specialized. So finding these more specialized roles where our company might not have a director of data analytics. So I want to go hear from this person at LaSalle who's running data for them and, kind of glean their insights. And, I think there's merit to a wide range of speakers. We also find that suppliers are wanting to be heard from as well. That is a very interesting kind of dynamic in the conference too, because, similar to how I mentioned with, the vendor dynamics before, it's funny, when I look at our surveys, I have probably just as many people who say, like, I heard from or talked to too many vendors as we do, I want to hear from more vendors and suppliers. So it's very interesting. I think there is a
Yeah,
huge value from hearing from supplier partners as well.
yeah, that's interesting. This survey, you're doing the survey on the long term basis after many months, right after the show,
Right
and
after the conference, we find is most valuable. Yeah.
most of them, yeah, of course. And okay, let's move on to trends. And you have a front row seat to the conversation shaping the industry. And from your vantage point, what are the major shifts you're seeing in PropTech and real estate innovation right now?
Yeah. Major trends. It's very interesting. I think that there's a huge elephant in the room, which is AI, and I think that that is something that again I hear equally it's over talked about and I want to learn more about. So that I think is very interesting. Something else I think is very interesting, especially in multifamily, is fraud detection. The number of providers for fraud detection has just skyrocketed in a very exciting way. Every time I
At
think I've
which
met every
at
founder,
which level?
what was that?
Fraud detection. Fraud
Fraud
detection
detection.
at which level of fraud? Contractual
So
fraud
resident.
detection.
So, I'm trying to get out of paying rent, or I'm lying about my
Ah,
income level, or my, yeah.
okay.
So it's something that honestly, I personally still don't know a ton about myself, because I've just really only recently in the past, 6, maybe 12 months to really started to hear a lot about it. I think it's been kind of an underlying problem within property management companies that providers are now kind of coming to the rescue for. But you're getting a lot of big name companies, Clear, who most folks know it, and airports is getting behind that, because they have such a great infrastructure of identification. They're getting behind that. They have providers, or they have a service themselves, and then they're also powering other services as well. I'm not a Clear representative, so I may or may not be accurately speaking to that, but I think it goes to show that you have startup level companies that are kind of finding these solutions, as well as very global companies that are providing solutions as well. That I think is very, very interesting.
Yeah, it is. Are there any other themes or topics or fraud detection that keeps coming up again and again?
Yeah. So what I think also is very interesting is that, and this is something that I get a very unique perspective of, is where is the industry's understanding of prop tech? Because a few years ago, a lot of companies were at a I'd call a more basic level, and the percentage of folks who have a more expert understanding of prop tech is really growing. But you still have this other pie on the end here, where folks are still coming to RETCON and largely operating on spreadsheets, and they're trying to, they may or may not even have any kind of virtual leasing platform or tech enabled leasing platform, which, I would have said 4 or 5 years ago would be on the more basic end. But the industry, as we know, can be a little bit slow to adapt. So what I think is very interesting right now is that kind of knowledge and tech gap, where you do have many more companies who are very established with their tech stack, and you also have companies who are really kind of beginning their journey, which I personally find very interesting. It's very challenging from a content perspective, because we have a wider range of attendees coming to hear content, but that I think is very interesting. I think that it's exciting, because we do have so many more companies who are experts, so to speak, but there are still a lot of tech beginners out there. So that I think is an interesting trend as well.
Yes, definitely. Um, I mean, those who are tech beginners are better learn and educate themselves very, very fast if they want to survive.
Yes.
But more than tech, AI, is AI truly reshaping the space, or is it still more buzz than execution? And you may see a tremendous difference between last year and. Oh no, you just had your conference in March.
Yes, in March.
Yeah.
Yeah, but year
Okay.
over year, every year, I think it was it maybe was it last year, the year before, that ChatGPT really just kind of,
It started last year. Yeah,
yeah.
it started beginning of last year. Exactly. Oh, I mean, started before, but noises from last year, and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
haven't
So it's
saw too many difference.
I think we've seen a huge difference. I think that we've had a range of just kind of interest from it, and I think it's very interesting in the industry, because if you look globally, and outside of real estate, there have been so many changes and innovations, and I actually think that the changes in other industries have driven real estate's interest. So I think that maybe call it the first 6 to 12 months of that kind of initial hype people were very excited, and then they realized, okay, maybe there's a peak of how this can impact the industry. I think a lot of that was data infrastructure just wasn't there yet either. And I think that, one, catching up on that data infrastructure has helped, as well as seeing other industries just completely get revolutionized with AI. And, whether or not it's specific AI products that have impacted real estate specifically, I think it's also just, people coming home from work, talking to their friends and finding out how they use Chat GPT to innovate their roles. So not just AI enabled direct real estate AI solutions, but also broad and global practices of how AI has revolutionized things. I think it's become more of a top of mind tool as people go through their day-to-day roles. So I think that's a huge part. And then, I think the industry itself has caught up with a lot of AI solutions. It's still not, I'd argue it's not where some industries are, but I'd also argue that no industry is where it needs to be. So I think that sure, real estate is a little bit behind, but there's a lot of industries that think they're behind as well.
We are the beginning of AI, let's say.
Yeah.
With with all this innovation, I imagine there are still some serious challenges behind the scenes. And what are some of the toughest problem you're seeing operators, developers, or tech funders still facing today?
Yeah. So I think that organizational buy-in is huge within tech. I think that whether or not you're at a property company, if any of us have a new tech that we're starting to work on, we realize, wait, this thing that I've been spending an hour to a day can be very solved with the technology, and it kind of makes you feel like you've lost a bit of your role, really. This thing that you thought was just, wow, took a lot of intentional effort and thought, actually can be resolved very quickly by a technology. And I think that scares people. And I think that what I hear from a lot of owner operators is that same kind of feeling and process as well. But what I found and heard is that if folks are very mindful about rolling out new technology, folks are able to see how, this isn't taking away my job. It's actually giving me an hour or two back of my day that I can focus on things that I want to be focusing on and get more kind of reward out of my day-to-day job. And I think that, kind of mindful rollout is extremely important. At our conference this year, I interviewed Cindy Clare, COO of Bell Partners, and she said that she is always looking for tech objectors when they're rolling out a technology. They're looking for a great, enthusiastic adopter, as well as someone who resists almost all tech. Because if they can convince that resistor that this tech can, make their lives better and impact their jobs in a great way, they know that's a win. So I think that strategies like that are extremely exciting.
That's true. That's true. Is there anything RETCON has surfaced through speakers or attendees that people are not talking about enough?
Interesting. I think something that I personally would like to hear more of, and something that I have personally had a challenge really bringing to the forefront, is construction technology. I think that that's something that's extremely important to all people in the industry, but it's something that's challenging. And I think that a lot of, personally, and again, I'm no expert on this, so I can't really speak to that side as much, but I see that a lot of what the technology in construction does is unite all the different parties involved. So the owner, the developer, the architect, the GC, the engineers, and their technology that unites all of those teams. And I think that the need to unite those teams also speaks to why it's hard to really kind of advance those situations, because if they're not as united as they need to be, and again, I am very layman speaking about this, but to me, I think that does speak to something, and that these teams, I think that the need for the technology emphasizes why we haven't seen as much of it, because we really, all of those parties need support. And it's, I don't think it's any one person's fault. I think it's just, it needs to happen. And I even think about just from a outsider perspective. Like, I'm in DC, we have such a huge housing shortage. It's becoming even worse. Right next to me, there's a 7-story 100% affordable housing development going up, which is very exciting. I'm dealing with the long construction process of this happening, and I can't help but think, if we were pros at modular right now, this could have gone up so much more quickly, and we could resolve so many problems in the industry if, one, we can find out ways to reduce costs, because we're not building enough, largely because of costs. We can't get deals penciled because of costs. And if we're able to really find, on the basic level of construction, how to make things more efficient from a time perspective, and from a cost perspective, I think we could build so much more quickly and more cheaply. I think we'd have more deals if we could build cheaply. So that, I think, is a very exciting area that I would, again, I think there's probably more that I don't know about, but it's stuff that I would like to see continue to develop, because I think it's really the start of every deal, and I think that would impact the lives of everyone in the industry.
Yeah, that's true. Construction tech, yeah, makes a lot of sense, and something to shorter time construction, lower cost. I mean, makes a lot of sense, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, and what keeps you up at night when thinking about the next 12 months,
A
or
lot.
in this
Well,
space,
I've
or
gotten really good at
in
meditating.
in this space, huh?
Yes, yes, a lot. Yeah, I mean, I personally am a perfectionist. I eat, sleep, live, breathe, retcon my work. And to me, it's all about. I think that events, it's a very interesting, kind of place to be, where you're trying to honestly really reach and touch as many different people in the industry as possible, because we really want to bring all parties together. So I'm constantly thinking about, how do I excite these people? How do I create new content? Or it's, we're not even creating content. We're finding people who are putting forward new and exciting ideas. So how do we continue pushing the line every year to keep the interest of, the more kind of expert level folks, and then also continue to attract folks who are more in their beginning stages of their journey? How do we help build more strong relationships at a peer-to-peer level, on the owner-operator level, on the business-to-business level, on the supplier-to-buyer relationship? That's what I spend a lot of my time thinking about, is how do I help make people do more business, essentially.
Yeah, of course. You have to sleep a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
It helps when the construction on the street from me has stopped.
Yeah, I mean, if they start at 5 in the morning, but I don't think so. Let's zoom out. If you had to bet on one big shift happening in real estate or PropTech by the end of 2025, it's so close, 2026, what would it be?
So, something that, whether or not I would bet real money on, but what I hope will happen, and what I would very much like to see, is I would love to see more non-PropTech tech talent enter the industry, whether it's in PropTech companies or if it's in property companies. I think that, in general, something that folks really struggle with tech and real estate is recruitment. Someone goes to, they're an expert in software development, they look for a Salesforce job, Google, Microsoft, and it's something that real estate companies, I think that we all as an industry can unite and do a better job with attracting talent to the industry, because it's something that's so relatable. It's something that we all interact with all day, every day, but people don't think that I can actually be a part of this space that surrounds me. And I think that if we can reach people and explain, just help, not even explain, just help them see what a big really cool, exciting world that this is. We can really push the line of talent inside and outside of prop tech. And I think that we're starting to see it. Ven recently hired an executive from Salesforce, I think, which is great. I know that there are other success stories similar to that. And I think that's something we need to see. We're a very close-knit industry, which is great because we can really foster innovation internally pretty quickly. But I think that bringing outside perspective is extremely important. Yes, people need to have a baseline understanding of the industry, but I think about that with hiring myself. Do I look for someone who knows conferences, who knows tech, who knows real estate? It's we're limiting ourselves a little bit if we're focusing on real estate knowledge experts, and bringing in other perspectives. I think will completely change the industry. So that's something I'd really love to see.
That's great. What are you personally most excited about building or contributing to next?
To the next conference?
Are you most excited next about building or contributing to?
To the on the conference level or on the industry level?
Are you personally most excited about contributing to in the next step?
Yeah. So I think that things that are interesting to me, I think that continuing to foster unique relationships. And then also something that I think is very exciting is there are a lot of conferences, associations that are one asset type specific. So they have a multifamily association or conference. They have an office or industrial conference. We are very intentional about bringing together all property types. We think that's extremely important. We have a lot of tracks and content that are focused specifically on certain assets. And then we have broad stroke content as well. And to me, it's extremely important that, I want multifamily owners and operators to go to retail sessions. I want office folks to go to industrial sessions. And I want personally more kind of exchange of ideas across asset types. I think that's extremely important. I think that there's a longer history of tech infrastructure and more commercial type companies. From a corporate level, they did a really, really good job of building a great infrastructure on just the CIO really perspective of things. But I think that on the more kind of new, exciting innovations, we're seeing a lot on the multifamily side. And I think that there's a huge hospitality element on the multifamily side of things that can be taken into the commercial perspective. Centralization is something that we've heard a lot of in multifamily recently. I'm now starting to hear that on the commercial side as well. It was a word that I never heard on commercial, but at the conference this year, you heard the word centralization a lot on our commercial sessions. Potentially not done in the same way as multifamily, but it's something that we're all really starting to think about. I think industry wide.
Very interesting. If you had one piece of advice for funders or executive navigating this evolving landscape, what would it be?
Yeah. I would say listen, honestly. I think that what is cool about the industry right now, especially within prop tech, is we're seeing a lot more of like a bold startup founder type who's just running into the industry with this big problem that they want to solve, or maybe a problem that they're creating that they now have a solution for that folks didn't realize there was a problem that existed. And I think that with this really great new kind of tech talent and perspective coming into the industry is great. But a lot of these tech founders don't know much about the industry. They're kind of learning as they go along. So making sure you're having very important, mindful conversations with owner operators, with your customers, and really building your product alongside them. And then on the flip side, when we have new kind of fresh tech talent coming in, maybe they don't know as much about the industry, but they know a lot about technology. And listening to their perspectives, I think that the continued collaboration is extremely important. It's something that I'm excited to see.
That's great. No, you're completely right. Let's wrap with a few quick one, and let's say whatever comes to mind. One easy one. One underrated trend in PropTech.
Underrated trend. Increasingly underrated ESG. It was very big.
That's true.
As we know, it's taken a bit of a hint. I personally think it's still just as important, and we all need to keep that
Yeah,
top of mind. So that would be
definitely.
mine.
Completely right. One overhype buzzword.
Overhyped buzzword. Oh, I'm gonna go with AI. I don't want to, but I think that that's to a lot of people AI, and it's something that I am finding myself wondering if I should be, promoting or
So,
talking about as much myself. But I think it remains to be extremely important.
yeah, definitely. One funder or company you're keeping your eye on.
Oh, it's really tough for me to pick just one. But
Yeah,
I do think
that's true.
I do think centralization is something that's huge. And I think that folks that are looking to solve centralization are getting a ton of success, especially the ones that are extremely mindful about it. That's something that I'm very, very excited about.
Could it be something like a central platform? That's what you meant.
I think it could be a central platform. I think that we're seeing the most innovation in terms of the most solutions around leasing. I think that's a huge area, but maintenance is growing as well. I think that is becoming huge. AI within centralization or within maintenance is getting big, and that really kind of aids centralization as well. I think that as as much as we don't want to admit it, we do need more resources on the building level, on the property management level, and tech solves those resources. It solves our recruitment woes. It helps keep people who are pulling their hair out happy, and I think that centralization is a big piece of that.
Makes sense. Um, One book or podcast or idea that recently shifted your perspective.
Oh, I do a lot of reading. Very, very rarely, kind of industry related. But something that I think about a lot is I'm a big history buff, and I think that
That's cool.
migration patterns are huge. It wasn't recent, but a book that I found a lot of value on personally, socially, politically is Sapiens by Noah Harari. And that is very big on human patterns. And I think that, what I think is very interesting is looking at people like this is very outside of real estate, but from a hunter gatherer perspective and how we very much have not changed since those days. And I think that in this world right now, we don't have very much connection with people. And real estate has a very unique opportunity to connect people, whether it's within multifamily buildings, whether it's within office buildings. And I think that property companies can very much build loyalty to their brands by connecting people because it kind of ignites something in our brains that makes us feel attached to a space. So I think that looking at people at a very basic level can help a lot of businesses, especially property businesses.
I love it. I love it. A podcast also bring people together.
Yes, exactly.
James, that's great. This was such a powerful conversation. Thank you so much. It was great to have you. Thanks for sharing your perspective and the work you are doing through RedCon to bring people together
Yes,
around
exactly. Exactly.
around the future of real estate and innovation. Um, Thank you very much, and hopefully we can discuss maybe a year from now and see right after your next conference in
Yes.
March 2026, and see the evolution on the AIT themes or other themes. But I really appreciate it. Thank you for being here with me.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you so much, Laurent. I really have enjoyed this.
That's great. And that's it for today's episode of the AI Interconnect. And it's if you enjoyed it, share it with someone who's building the future, or better yet, someone who should be. And until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep building. Thank you so much, James.
Thank you.